because I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching another episode of Honesty About Anxiety. And today we're talking with BOTTUM, and we're going to focus on anxiety attacks and how to control it, what it is, and what to do if you see somebody else having it. So, hi, Tia.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Tia BOTTUM. I live in North Carolina. I had suffered through a lot of anxiety and panic after I had my kids, and I've learned how to manage it. And I have two babies. One's 20 and one is 14, so they're not babies anymore. And I am a military spouse, so I've moved a lot around the country, and I know about anxiety for sure.
So you, from your personal experience, a lot, right?
Mm-hmm, yes.
So let me start from. Usually, I try to go from the beginning of anxiety. What age did you first experienced it or acknowledged it?
I would say probably in my 20s. If you ask people around me, they probably thought I was an anxious kid. But to me, I didn't think so until I was in my 20s when I really started having actual panic attacks or anxiety attacks. So, yes. And then it just got worse after I had my daughter. I was 25. And I think before that, it was after September 11th. I think trauma triggers it. And I'm originally from New York. So it was very much embedded into trauma, any kind of trauma triggers for sure.
Were you still in New York during 9/11? You were there in that time? Or
I wasn't actually. I had just moved to Ohio. I had just gone back to the city a month before, and I was at the Trade Center like literally a month before, and you never thought of something like that happening. So I think that's when I actually started getting anxiety and panic attacks. So I've had both, but that probably started the panic attacks, and that's when I started to notice I was very sensitive to anxiety.
Do you remember your first one anxiety attack or panic attack, or do you make a difference between them?
Okay, so panic is extreme fear. It's almost like a phobia almost. And anxiety is like an anticipation of something happening. Like a fear, not so much a fear, but like anxious about like doing a speech or things like that could trigger you. And those would be anxiety. They're very similar. Panic usually, for me anyway, I would just get stuck. I would freeze. I would feel like I was having a heart attack. It was hard to breathe. And how I always pictured in my mind, I'm a photographer as well in trade. And I want to do a set of this, but like hooks into your body and like you're just laying down and you're just stuck there. Like you can't move. And with anxiety, it's more of nervous, you're shaking. It's like almost like an adrenaline rush. And it can lead to panic if you're used to doing panic attacks. Yeah. So it could trigger that as well. Not always.
Yeah, but it's a lot of it you feel with your body and a lot of it with your mind though as well.
Absolutely. So it's perceived is what I have like 3 P's that I think of, and it's perception. It's perception of what's happening around you, or perception of trauma. And sometimes if your body's so used to it, used to those hormones just being released, it'll come out of nowhere. So you have to really start getting curious about what are your triggers, what is making like you all of a sudden, like just start getting curious about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you said 3 P's?
Yes. So I have perception, which is that, and then I have probable versus possible. So I would have to like talk to myself. I'm like, is this possible? Maybe. Like it's about a fear happening, right? Or anticipatory stress, right? Like you're going to go fly. And so you're worried before you need to worry. And you have to think about like, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? Probably not, right? So knowing the difference between that and not believing every thought that you have. Because once you think something, your body will already start reacting. Yes. If you're thinking something bad or thinking something good, your body is already working with you and your mind. So, so there's that. And then my third P is passion, like finding the passion for life and wanting to follow, finding the answers. And I used to be the what if girl. Well, what if something bad happens? What if right? And through I had a behavioral therapist, which my counselor, and she was amazing. I always, every time I move, I say I'm going to hire my new next best friend, right? So it's somebody I get to talk to and say all the crazy things that go through my head and get it out. And really just following that, what if something good happens? What if I try this and I never have another panic attack again? What if? You have to do it both sides, right? If you think the negative, you can think the positive too. So like just give yourself a chance and follow what you want in life.
And maybe even more of that positive one. I think the positive one is the one that people actually have to train to have when they deal with anxiety, is they have to train the positive one. And now when you're talking about it, I'm thinking even train the positive when there is no anxiety, because then you get to learn to find positive things. And when the anxiety happens, then you were able to, it's easier to go to those positive things instead of going to that, what the anxiety automatic negative thoughts are.
Yes. So there's a fourth P then, practice, because it takes practice of training your brain. And mindful meditation, super helpful. That changed my life completely. I did a 6-week program, and it literally took the entire 6 weeks for me to calm down, because you get in the state of always thinking like, I have to be on top of it. I have to like think about everything and every scenario is how my brain used to work. And it still does sometimes, but I know how to manage it now. It took a lot of practice, and it literally took 6 weeks for me to relax and calm down, because I felt like it's amazing what your brain will do. I felt like if I didn't think about everything, then I would be unprepared, and I needed to be prepared for everything. But there's no way you can, you
No
can't.
way you can.
And you're just torturing yourself before anything happens. So I was like in a state of like worry constantly. And it was not fun. And I will tell you what, after I could relax and have a calm brain and a calm body, I could react appropriately to when things actually did happen or not happen.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting, because like you were saying, we worry about things that might happen, which is great scenarios of things in our head. But same way with everything, and everybody's bringing it up, the practice is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you don't want to have like actual something happen, and you need, what's better? Do you want to be all hyped up, or do you want to be calm and make rational decisions when you actually need to? So you have to think of that too, like a calm brain in a scenario. Like think of like firefighters or whatever, like how stressed would you be if you like broke your leg and somebody's coming up like freaking out around you? Like, no, like that's not helpful at all. Like you need to have like a calm brain, like this is what we do and all that. And it tricks you, anxiety, because you think that, well, I'm trying to prepare myself of like, well, if this happens and this happens, but you're actually just frantic. You're not thinking straight, like if this, then that. And it comes with training. Just like if you take CPR, you know, you're trained like, okay, the first step is this, the second step is that. And you can't teach yourself of unknown scenarios yourself. Like it's too hard.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's important as well with people with really big anxiety to have those, and even for everybody, like you're saying, there's counselors and there's therapy, coaches, whatever it is, you need somebody to talk it out with. Because for me as well, like my own things, I help others, but I need other people's help when I need to have something out of my head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when it starts like rolling and rolling and rolling, now I practice for it as well for a long time. So now it's easy. Or if it's not easy anymore, then I know who to call.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those people that I know, like, okay, it keeps on rolling. I know it's not true, but it keeps on rolling in my head. So I just need to get it out. And if I don't have that person available, the thing is that I write.
Yes. Yeah. Journaling. Definitely getting it out of your head, because you just spiral it back and forth because there's no one else talking to you to get you out of it. Mm-hmm. So saying it out loud, even like, for example, my son came in this morning and he had a nightmare and it was crazy. And I was like, well, tell me about it. Because he was like scared. And it was the craziest thing. Like Santa Claus came in and was gonna like hurt everybody. And I was like, now that you said it out loud, doesn't that seem silly? And he said, yeah. And he was fine. Like, it's amazing, like a feeling, your thoughts, your feelings, and your body response. It's a perceived fear and threat. So you're already like, so it must be true. But it's not always true. It's just a response from your feelings. Like it automatically triggers. And how amazing is our body to do that?
Mind.
Like it's so amazing. So if you have a little bit of anxiety, that means your body's working. It's just triggered in the wrong areas at the wrong time.
It's
so,
just,
yeah.
And you might have just a wrong reaction of your body warnings. I was just thinking today as well with same thing, like anxiety and fear, they kind of connected. But when you're having that fear, that first fear moment is just your body's warning sign. But then it's up to you to decide if you now acknowledge it, you have a choice to be fearful or not to be fearful.
Yeah.
After you practice, but you do have a choice. Okay, you got the warning sign, you feel fear. So it's like, okay, something's going on or something's bothering you. But now, do I actually have to keep on being scared? Or I don't have to be scared and maybe just have to be cautious or make some action or something like this. But you have a choice not to be scared if you acknowledge and practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And having a conversation with yourself if no one's around, like, is this true? Right? Like just asking that question to yourself. If that's the one question you can ask yourself, is this true? That will help you so much because your brain answers questions for you. If you're asking something negative, it'll find all the evidence for something negative.
Yes.
If you're asking something positive, it'll find all the positive. So that's part of the training too, right? And practice doing and talking to yourself. Like if that's the one question, if you leave here today knowing is it true? Is the thought true? Is the scenario true? And that will help you like decide immediately, like, okay, this isn't an immediate threat, like imminent threat or anything. And it was just a thought that went through my mind. And sometimes your body is so used to being hyper vigilant, like it's on a timer, like it's used to releasing endorphins at a certain time, or cortisol, and your body gets addicted to that. Like, well, this is normal. So having anxiety brain, you think, wait a minute, why am I calm? Something must be wrong. Like, it won't, like you're always thinking. Yeah, like it's this big spiral. Like, if you're calm, something's wrong. If I'm anxious, something's wrong. Like, you never win in that state. So being calm, but it'll still trigger you even if you're calm.
Yep.
So learning what triggers you. That thought would trigger me. Like, why am I so calm? Right. And it sounds ridiculous, but with people that have had anxiety, they understand, they get it. And to tell people to calm down, like, that's not going to work. Like, don't tell me to calm down. I just need like solutions. So just ask yourself, is it true? Whatever's going on in your head, is it true? So,
yeah.
Probable.
Do you remember your first real attack?
I developed like weird phobias after.
Okay. Well.
And I would be action. So think of it as fight or flight or freeze, right? So at first I was in flight. Like, I had to like run somewhere. Like, I was scared. I need to get out of the situation. But it progressed after I had my daughter, because obviously I had a kid. I couldn't just like take off. So that's when my fawn and fear or freeze would step in. And I vividly remember my daughter's 8th birthday. And my husband was deployed at the time, so it was all on me to do all of the things. And I had this big birthday party planned for her. And I started to worry about it. And all of a sudden, my body was flooded and I couldn't move. And I just had to lay down on my bed. And at that time, I didn't want my children to know that I was having those fears, because I didn't want them to think that was normal. Because I grew up with a mom that had clinical depression, clinical anxiety, suicidal tendencies, alcoholism, all of the things. So I remember her going through that, and she would just crawl on the floor in a ball, and we had to step over her and get on with life. And I didn't want them to think of that as me.
Okay. Or see that as all.
See that as like, this is how we deal with life, and that's where the passion came in, right? Okay. For me. Like, I needed to get help. I went and got a counselor, and I cried the entire time. Like, I cried in the parking lot. I cried because I thought I couldn't fix myself. And I turned into my mom. Like, I was so mad. I was sad. I was disappointed, like all of those things. And it was so much easier. Like, after the first one and the intake, like, I couldn't even fill out the forms. I was like hysterical crying, and which is not me at all. I try to be strong all the time and handle everything. And that day I was just like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't hold it together. And I walked out of there and everything was fine. Everything is fine. Like, and that was the first step. But that, I remember vividly that day of having that panic attack, laying in bed, the door shut. Luckily, my mother-in-law had just gotten there, and I was like, I need you to go pick up the balloons and the cake, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't drive like that. I couldn't move. And I was coaching myself, this will end in an hour. I just have to let the hormones work through my body. Yeah. So that's another good tip too, is knowing that nothing lasts. even the bad stuff. It will, especially hormones, because you think it's like you can gain on it too, right? You could be like, oh my gosh, I'm dying. And then that'll trigger more anxiety and like, oh no, I have to go to the hospital, like all of that stuff. So if you give yourself an hour and be like, okay, my body is flooded with cortisol. I just need to sit down, just breathe and calm down. And at the end of the hour, if it's getting worse, then maybe you should go to the hospital. But like, I'm not telling anyone to like not go if something is actually happening. But usually there's not pain. I don't remember pain happening. It was more of like fast heartbeat, hard heartbeat, and the fear and flooding of the hormones. But I don't remember actual pain. And that can be a difference too. Like if you're in really bad pain versus my heart's just beating really fast, and that's adrenaline and you're just flooding it. So you have to, some people, exercise works. Like you work through those, take a walk, go out into nature, up your vibration, whatever you want to call it. That is helpful. For me, I just needed to lay down and breathe, catch my breath, and wait it out.
I was thinking everyone has to find their own what works for them. That's important as well. But for the viewers, if you want to see that episode 4 is about intergenerational anxiety. So that's what you talked before. You have seen it with your mom and everything, and you didn't want to present it to your kids in the same way. So you learn to control it. So difference, that's important as well. But for that therapist as well, was that the first time you went to the therapy, or have you seen a therapist before that attack as well?
No, that was the first one for myself. Like growing up, because of my mom, occasionally I would see her therapist, but not real. It wasn't for me. It was more to support her. This was just for me, and I definitely needed it. I realized a lot of things. Like I had a disordered way of thinking and responding to things. So, and you were talking about the generational things. So how I explain it is like all of a sudden you grow up and you're a parent or not, you're just growing up and you realize like you didn't get stellar parenting, right? And you have to finish the job. Like you have to start parenting yourself and making the decisions for you. You can't just like, well, this is how it always was. And people are flawed. My mom was flawed. She was an amazing woman. She has since passed, but she was an amazing woman, loving, so giving, and yet she was flawed. Okay. And in turn, I got damaged a little bit, right? So I don't think she woke up every day and was like, how can I mess up my kids? Like that wasn't her purpose. But it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Yes. And I'm not trying to blame her at all. Like she just didn't have the tools to raise a child. So, or all of them. And none of us do. Look, I took child psychology. I wanted to be the best parent ever. Like I couldn't wait to be a mom. I wanted to do it my way, like, you know. And then that's why it was so hard for me to admit like, oh no, I have anxiety. Like, so I was really scared I was turning into her. And I'm not. I didn't. I have different issues and I have a different brain and a different way of thinking than she did. And I'm a different generation. So, and then having faith in your children to grow from you and grow in themselves.
And now we have more knowledge about it as well. Like your mom probably didn't have maybe any understanding what was going on, why it was going on. Did your mom see a therapist for that or never? Because it was completely different times, but you said she did?
She did. It wasn't great. I think that I think she would have benefited more from a behavioral therapist than a psychiatrist. Their answer back in the 80s and stuff was, here's some magic pills and everything should be fine. And I was definitely seeing that. And that's where I was like, I don't want any pills. I want this fixed. So because I saw it didn't help her. You know, it wasn't a brain chemistry issue. It was definitely behavioral. She had emotional damage and trauma that she needed to deal with that she didn't. And yeah, definitely that generation, I would not have wanted to be an adult then, for sure, with these issues. Yeah, there's so much more now. I mean, just yoga in general is huge now, like, and that's amazing. And mindfulness and meditation is now way bigger. So
there's a lot of help right now where you can learn to control it instead of just medicated, which in some cases medication is needed.
Oh yeah, it helps take the edge off so you can actually like concentrate on helping yourself. And well, that's what I'm saying. There's brain chemistry issues, excuse me, I have allergies. And then there is behavioral issues. And if you have a lot of trauma, like if something like really catastrophic happens to you, and that can trigger a lot of anxiety, sometimes you need something to take the edge off so you can help work through those issues. But basically it's just postponing it. If you're not getting the help, you're just postponing the problems if you're not fixing it.
Yes.
And I'm a big component of, like, if you get on any of the, I call them mind drugs, but like the those that you need therapy with it. Like it's not a one-off fix-all thing. You need to work through and figure out how this started, how to help yourself, and think of tools. So, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to confirm as well. Just the medicine is never going to fix it. It just covers it. But you can fix it when you work with it, work through it, talk about it, ask the questions, do the other things as well, do the meditation, is all the things. So medication can be just like, hopefully it's just a temporary relief when you're working on those other things, until those other things, all the other things start working and you actually be able to sit calmly through the anxiety attack and just figure it out what to do and learn to calm yourself down, your body down in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, I was so anxious. I was afraid of pills. So like, that's another thing. I would have flipped out just taking the pill, even though it's supposed to calm you. But in my head, I was like, by the time I take the pill and then have another anxiety attack and it starts working, I would have already worked through it. Like it was, because like literally, if you have the tools to know, like, this is only going to last an hour, you don't need to take a 6-hour pill for it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, but sometimes it helps you just think that, all right, this is going to get rid of it. Right. And that'll automatically calm you down. And I say, just take half of the Tylenol. If you need something. But you know, everybody's different.
If it's not physical pain, then the painkiller or any of that's not gonna do anything for anxiety.
Well, I meant like a placebo, like take a vitamin. If it makes you, if you just believe in something will work, you're like,
exactly.
Like, and that's how like dependence has, I mean, I don't want to veer off into addiction and all of that, but like, I've come to certain conclusions. I've had a lot of people with addictions around me, and you don't choose to become addicted, right? And even coping mechanisms, like myself, like this sounds so dumb, but I am a huge control, like planner. Like I love planning everything. And I realized I do that because sometimes it makes me happy, planning a vacation, right? And then I realized this last summer, we are living in a rental and they were thinking about selling the house. And I was like, oh no, like that means I have to move. So I just start planning away. And that's kind of my coping mechanism of when I'm happy, when I'm scared, when I'm sad, I start planning and having some kind of control. And that's where like phobias come in and all of that. But in terms of addiction, it's so easy to find something that stimulates you in a certain way. And a lot of people, it's alcohol or drugs. And I can see how that happens. Like, it's like, ooh, let's have fun. Let's party. Let's drink. So you're doing it when it's that. And then all of a sudden you have a bad day and like, oh, I need this to calm down. And then all of a sudden every day it's either to be happy or to be sad. Like you're using it to cope with life. And all of a sudden you're addicted. Like, and that, I can see how that happens.
And that part with the alcohol is kind of like also cultural manipulation, because there's so many businesses that getting money out of it. So it's already socially such a behavior things for people to celebrate with alcohol or to use alcohol to calm down and everything. So I started for a while ago. I started when people asking, I don't drink. I haven't been drinking for years and years, but and I have a lot of people who don't drink, but there's still people who have this question that why aren't you drinking? They think there has to be a reason why you're not drinking. So they think it's kind of turned around, that they think that why are you not drinking is a problem. And I turned it around and you actually asked, like, the problem is not why I am not drinking. The problem is why you are drinking. So you should not be asking me the question why I'm not drinking, but I should be asking you why you are drinking.
Right. Well, yeah. And then it comes into this like spiral shame loop, right? And on both sides, like there's like a definite divide. And I get that too, because I haven't drank since college. I can't. And multiple reasons I don't want to. For obvious reasons that I've talked about. And I happen to have a chronic illness, and that would be not good for me. So I couldn't even, if I tried, wanting that as a coping mechanism. But
that's not drinking is a good thing. And that's what you see.
Right.
We feel bad, not bad, but we feel kind of guilty from the society because they already have the drinking is so much in society that if people don't do it, that seems weird.
Yeah, it's part of the culture.
Yeah, because it actually should be weird where people have to do it. If they do it occasionally to celebrate and all the things, that's fine. But there's people who are like, think they have to have a drink every time with the dinner.
Yeah.
Every day they have drink and or they get drunk to completely wasted drunk to celebrate. So, and they think that is normal instead of thinking normal is not drinking is normal.
Right. So I have a theory. So my mom started to drink and became an alcoholic as a teenager. And I realized, like, growing up around different people that had alcohol addiction and all the things, and I realized that their mentality, like emotionally and intellectually, stops at the time that you start becoming an alcoholic, like drinking on a regular. You don't grow past that. So like if you started when you were 16, your mentality. Because you have time to process actual life at night. Like, because you're not there. You're numbing yourself. So you don't have time to process actual things that are happening. You're running away from it. And you wake up one day and you're 50 and you're like, well, I still don't want to face all the things that have happened. And you keep drinking. So it's like this, you're running constantly. Workaholism is the same thing. Like if you just keep busy, I don't have to think about it. But when you don't think about it and you don't process, like it's still plaguing you. You're not working through it. And you're just stuck at whatever age you started doing that. That's my theory.
Yeah, and that's good. But let's go back to anxiety attack. So what was, I was just thinking about that. How long it took from when you first started acknowledging it as an attack to actually get like, now you say you already come. Oh, actually, I think you said that. It was pretty much right after the first appointment when you were able to understand that you can control it. But how, or what do you think? How long it took you to actually be somewhat in control of it?
Okay. So I had a lot of things to work through and different relationships to talk about in therapy. And so I started, what made me go is that my husband was getting deployed in 2011. And I realized, oh, I have 2 kids and I'm by myself and my husband's going to war. Like that was already anxiety. And that's all on me. So I was like, you know what, I really do need a counselor. So I started going in April 2011. My husband had to leave a month later. And I had anxiety the entire time. It doesn't just go away just because you talk to somebody. You have to learn all the tools. And ever since then, I've had a counselor. Like every time I move, I get my new next best friend, right? And I think, immediately, like she could point out things and give me tools to think about because I am an analytical person. I overthink everything and I love to do a lot of research, and it helped me to have her. So I was gradually getting better. And then the final thing that I probably stopped having panic attacks. Oh, so this is multifaceted because I didn't know I had an autoimmune disease, and I also had thyroid. I had a hyperactive thyroid, which will cause anxiety. So I had physical stuff that causes anxiety, and I had a lot of stuff going around me that can trigger. So we moved in 2014 to Washington State, and that's when I took a 6-week course in mindful meditation. And that was like the catalyst of completely changing my body. Like I was already changing my mind, but like getting in touch with the mind and body at the same time, like completely changed my life. So since 2015, 2014, I would say that I haven't really had any panic attacks. I have occasionally had anxiety attacks because I've had a couple near-death experiences with my chronic illness. I have ulcerative colitis. It's I didn't know it for years, right? It would actually trigger anxiety, and I wouldn't know why. Because I was like, I'm not thinking of it. Like it never made sense, except my body was telling me something was wrong. And that's why I'm saying be curious, because there could be something medically wrong with you that your body is trying to tell you something is wrong, something is wrong. Not always, but this happened to be. That's why I'm saying it's multifaceted. So like, yes, I had mental stuff going on. And once I fixed that and it was still not getting all the way better, I started getting curious about like, when is this happening? Like sometimes it was certain times of the month as a woman. Like I know there's certain weeks that I am super sensitive about things.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm totally, you have to, I did this program for myself that actually did, I came up with it myself, but I did it myself as well. Where for 5 months I did my cycle, and I tracked each day, like my cycle is 28, 29 days. So I tracked each those days, one until 28 or 29, how I feel, what my body does in the morning and at nighttime, what I feel like. And I track time and I start seeing the patterns. Now I know the patterns. And now when I wake up and I have this, there's some days that I just wake up, feel like with a little bit of anxiety or fear. And it's just like, it's just that day. I look in a calendar. It's because of my body, my hormones, whatever is going on. I let it go because I noticed that there was feeling was there, but there was no, in the real life, there was no actual thing to be scared of or sad about or something like that.
absolutely.
Yeah. So now after I had this calendar, for everybody it takes probably different time, how many times they have to do it. For me, it took 4 months I had to do it, and fifth one I already like it started repeating too much. So it's just like I just look back in other days and see what's going on. So
yes, yeah.
So now it makes it so much easier because I feel relief that it's nothing in real life.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was talking about with perception, like knowing, like, all right, this is a pattern. This is supposed to kind of happen. Like our hormones do certain things, and it feels like anxiety when you wake up. You're like, what's going on, right? Like you immediately feel it, and it's so weird. Like
it's really weird.
Yeah. Yes, and so doing that's a good idea, like tracking your hormonal cycle and writing it down. There's great apps for that. I use Women's Log, I think. And I know Apple has their own thing. The new Apple Watch came out and it tracks your temperatures and it predicts all my stuff. Like, like okay. I mean, I know it usually, but like now, because I'm super in tune with my body. But like I was saying, like the thyroid, if you have seen a counselor and you're working through your stuff and you're still having that, like it's a body first before your mind, just check into the hospital, but your regular doctor, and ask to get your hormones checked, because the thyroid controls so much. You have no idea. Like if you have a underactive, it can feel like depression all the time. And if you have over it, you feel like you have anxiety, because it rules everything in your body and how it responds. So that and intestinal stuff for sure, because a lot of people have IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. It's sort of like a headache, but for your belly. And anxiety can trigger that, or food. Like, and it would, if I had like some IBS symptoms, I would think something was wrong, because the first time I noticed that, actually, of a friend of mine died by suicide, and I was in the bathroom for hours. Like I just couldn't, because it was a lot. It was a lot of trauma, and it went right into my guts, like immediately. So that, and it turns out years later, I just was diagnosed at 41 of ulcerative colitis, and it's ulcers of the intestine. It's autoimmune. So I've learned a lot about autoimmune. And usually if you've had trauma growing up, you're more likely to have some kind of autoimmune. It's like your body's attacking itself and it's dysregulated. And not always, like sometimes it's just the way it is. Like it's
Exactly.
But I fall under IBD, which is, so IBS is a symptom like a headache, and then IBD is a disease that is not curable yet. I say yet because you should always try to have hope. Always have hope.
Yeah. But I want to point out again for viewers as well, like you were saying, mindfulness practice is huge tool for anxiety. Mindfulness practice helps you. If you get that down, it already reduces the chances of having anxiety or anxiety attacks.
Can I give you an exercise? So there's two main things that I do. Because you say mindfulness and people are, I don't know what that means, right? So what I do, like when you're in the shower, you start thinking about like, where did this water come from? And I start thinking about like the travel that this water that is touching me and cleaning me had to go through these pipes, through a system, and maybe it was in a lake, maybe it was rain. Like when you start thinking just in depth about something around you that's happening, don't do this when you're driving. Don't do that. But it takes you out of your body a little bit, and you're just kind of flowing with whatever's going on. And that's a good like little what's the example of a mindfulness practice. Sometimes with eating, thinking about like if you have a sandwich and it has a tomato, where did this tomato come from? How many people had to be involved with this tomato to get it on my sandwich? Like I had cut it, but before that it was at the store and somebody stocked it, and before that it was on a truck, so there was a truck driver, and then before that it was at a farm. Like it's amazing to think about stuff like that we don't do, but it's a safe thought. It's a safe trail to like get you, and then all of a sudden your body is very calm because you're not thinking about all the bad noise around you, right? So those are a couple of exercises. And then of course a breathing exercise that I do is like you breathe all the way in, and then one final and let it out slowly. So all the way in, and then one final that way it fills out all those little lung pockets and you're getting more oxygen. And you could do that. I do it only a couple times because sometimes you're not used to all that oxygen, and then you have to hold your breath a little. But that it helps stimulate the vagus nerve, which is calming. It's sort of like when you're sleeping, you're calm. I have woken up with anxiety in the middle of the night, like with an anxiety attack. And that's because my body was so used to releasing adrenaline all the time that it would just do it without me even doing it. So stimulating the vagus nerve, super helpful. Finding out different ways to do that. Stretching like this and looking past your shoulder on both sides. That helps. So yeah, I hope those
There's
tools.
a lot of tools. You just have to figure out all those tools that work for you. And I wanted to point out, because when you start thinking about doing that mindfulness practice that you were talking about, that actually helps people who are watching. That helps you be able to track down where your anxiety is coming from. Because you're pretty much doing the same thing. You're tracking back on like, well, I did this thing in the morning, and then I felt like this, or yesterday somebody said something to me, or when I was little, I heard this music. Let's say I heard this song when I was little, and I just heard it yesterday, or something. Like you can able to track back on those things.
Yes.
Smells, that exercise reminded me, and I never thought about it this way, but when I was little, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8 even. And little kids have this sometimes fear of like falling asleep. They're just like, I don't know why, but and I didn't realize that what I was doing with your, now your exercise pointed it out, but what I was doing was mindfulness exercise, because I started thinking about how much love is around me. So I was thinking like, somebody that made this pillowcase loves somebody, and the people who love him or her love somebody else. Somebody who did this, made this blanket, they love somebody. And suddenly there was just like so much love around me. So it made me feel safe as a kid.
Oh, I love that. That's
Mm-hmm.
so sweet.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, you just made me think of something that I usually say in private, but it's funny. Think about like how many people had to get together at the exact moment and have a connection to make you, like thousands of people at different times in life, to create you, the unique person you are. You wouldn't be you if like 100 years ago those two people didn't get to, like, it blows my mind to think about like how amazing life is and like how special we are. We wouldn't be who we are right now without thousands of people behind us.
Thousands of people before us.
Yeah,
That's an amazing way to think of it as well. Well, we have to start closing down the hour as well. So let's, before we're going to make some closing statements, let's talk about a little bit what else you do and how people can contact you. I'm going to put your website address in the bottom, but also all the contacts for Tia are in the descriptions as well.
Thank you. Okay, so by trade, I am a branding and portrait photographer, also a money archetype coach to help you with your mindset. It's how you do money is how you do everything. And I have a lot of knowledge that I help you with just from my own life. I am a published author. This is the exciting thing. You're the first one that I'm announcing on, is that I am starting a podcast October 3rd. It's called Empowering Time Markers. It's about leaving a legacy of yourself. It's for entrepreneurs early in their business that need tips, and I'm going to have entertaining stories from people, like from ghost stories to business stories, all kinds of things about fear and anxiety, and I would love to have you on for sure.
Definitely want to be on as well. But what is the channel for that? What's your YouTube channel for?
My YouTube channel is Time Marker Legacy.
Yeah. And that show's going to be starting October, you said, right?
Yes, October 3rd. And it will also be regular podcasting for just the audio, but I will have video like this as well for YouTube, but on Spotify.
So people who are watching it year from now, right now, the year is 2023.
Yeah.
So if people watching it from 5 years from now, they were like, oh, it's going to start in October. No, if you're watching it in 2028, so it already started.
Yes. And see, I'm leaving a legacy.
Wow. Exactly.
We're leaving legacies right now.
So let's give some closing thoughts about anxiety, kind of anxiety attacks.
Okay.
So let's just repeat those 4 P's.
Okay. So perception, knowing like if it's a threat or not, and figuring out why you're having. And then probable versus possible, right? Knowing the difference of what's happening. Then finding your passion of what life do you want and trying to go for that. And then practicing the tools that we just gave you, or getting a counselor and things like that, trying yoga, just have hope that something will work.
Mindfulness practice for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a huge one for sure.
Okay. Also, with all my shows, I'm going to ask what I ask all the guests in all my shows. because my channel is actually happiness with Pirat. So I do most of the time I do happiness, but I wanted to bring this anxiety in because before you get to the happiness, you have to face the issues that you have with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is happiness for you? Not what people think happiness is, or not what generally is thought of happiness is, but just for you, what happiness is for you.
Oh my gosh. A lot of things just went through my head.
What comes in the mind first?
So the first thing was being alive, having this chance, and this is my third chance to go, having near-death experiences. And I think that shifted my whole life. There was nothing to be afraid of anymore when you've gone through a lot of torture, and realizing when you do get better, like how magnificent it is to feel like happy and no pain. And if you're going through pain right now, just know that someday it comes and goes, right? And to have hope and faith. And my husband came to mind. I love being married and having that secure relationship of a best friend that I get to do life with. And of course, being a mom, like that was my dream since I was a little girl, to be a mom. And they're my dreams come true. So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And what would be 3 things or activities, just 3 or maybe less or whichever, like that make you feel happy? Simple.
Well, comedies. I love watching comedies. I love laughing. Laughing is the best. And if you could get me cry laughing,
oh, love that. Happiness tears.
Yes. Music makes me so happy. Sunsets, like just nature. Like when you're walking on the beach and you're just like, this is amazing. Like, oh my gosh. And plants. Like I love looking at plants. Like I forgot the question. I got sucked into
they were just items and activities that make you feel happy. So that's awesome.
Yes. See how I'm smiling? Because just thinking about those things. Oh, can I say one more thing? You can't be fearful and thankful at the same time. So I would write a list of all the things that I'm thankful for when I'm not like having anxiety. And then I would read it to myself if I started having anxiety.
That's a good tool too. Yeah, that's a really good tool too.
Remember that.
That's awesome. Okay, we're gonna finish this hour. Tia, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for giving us your expertise and your experiences. It was really thoughtful and important.
Well, thank you
as well. So
thank you for doing this for so many people. Like I hope that it reaches, if you're listening to this, that you were meant to be here and to hear it. And I hope it spreads hope and faith and gives people tools. So thank you for having this platform and having me on.
Yeah, thank you. And hope everybody else enjoyed this as well. And you can learn to control your anxiety. Watch the other episodes altogether. There's 9 episodes about anxiety. And when you're done with those anxiety episodes, go and watch the happiness episodes, or you can mix and match them as well. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you, Tia.
Thank you.